Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Check Engine Podcast on this Friday, October 19th. What do you guys think? Does the date work? I just figured I'd throw that in there once. Give it a shot.
But
it certainly sets an expiration date on when we can post these.
yeah, exactly. then they'll know. They'll know.
Luckily, this one's going up right away, so hey.
Oh, well. So, I figured I'd try it, change it up a little bit. Anyway, this is the Check Engine Podcast. We're the only podcast produced by 3 winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. I'm one of them. I'm Nick. And with me are my 2 somewhat sickly co-hosts, Andrew and Tristan. How are you feeling?
I'm fine. Mine's a semi-permanent condition. It's fine.
I could die at any moment. I could expire.
I've lived through worse, always.
That's not good news for Andrew. Probably not good news for me either. I'm probably going to be sick next week. Just a heads up.
I will cough at Tristan. You have my solemn promise.
Oh, thanks.
Quick,
That's
he
awesome.
knows he wants me actually dead.
Yeah.
They're arch enemies.
Working the long con.
It's a long...
Get real close, start doing a podcast together, and then kill him with a horrible disease.
Gently cough on him.
Slowly,
Knew I
but
should.
steadily with a cough.
Knew I shouldn't have trusted him.
Oh, well, anyway, if you couldn't tell by now, we're not pros, but you're listening anyway, so we appreciate it. We're streaming on anchor.fm/checkengine-podcast or anywhere podcasts are streamed, breaker.audio, Google, iTunes. We are now on Podbean,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
That's
big one.
another new host for us, so thank you very much to Podbean for playing us. Again, we don't work in the industry. We're not writers. We're not engineers for car companies. We don't work for race teams or anything like that. We're just 3 guys who love talking about cars and motorsports and everything that entails. And we don't want to just talk at you. We want to talk with you. So please interact with us. Reach out. We have our own website. It's checkenginepodcast.com. It is your home base for pretty much anything you want to know. Gives information about us. It's where we post our blogs. Great one today, by the way, Andrew.
Oh, thanks.
It's where our socials are. You can get links to our episodes. We also have a direct email through that website. It is inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. And as most companies and people are these days, we're all over the socials. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. And, of course, the Twitter. We're also there.
Yeah, there's been some big stuff on Twitter lately, so if you're not following our account, make sure that you get a Twitter account, first of all. What are you doing? It's 2018.
Who are you?
It's literally where all the news in the entire world happens. And follow us. We got some cool connections. You can see me trying to finagle the bagel with some industry people. You like that saying?
I don't.
I don't like it.
I don't.
Either.
Yeah,
I just tried it out.
Nice try.
It wasn't good.
Here, Ryan, that was the only positive. But yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to set some cool stuff up, and I try to retweet the interesting things I see. This account, I only follow car industry people, so...
Retweet the interesting things and fight with the ones he disagrees with.
Exactly.
So if you're looking for a little more entertainment in your life...
And fight with Nick Bunkley from Automotive News.
It is at Check Engine Pod at Twitter if you want to see any of that stuff. And hey, if you're really into what we're doing and you want to help the cause, we thank you in advance. We do have pages for support. We have one right on our home base at anchor.fm/checkenginepodcast. There is a support link that you can click right there. We also
handy little button.
And we also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/checkenginepodcast. Every cent that goes into those will be regurgitated in a way to make this experience better for you, the listener, whether it be swag, better recording equipment, more cool effects or better music, or more trips that we can then report on and talk to you guys about. So we're not pocketing any of it, but we thank you for helping us out. So yeah, support us if you would like. We've got a really interesting episode tonight. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Andrew, what's on the docket? What are we talking about?
So tonight we're going to talk car dealerships. We're going to talk about our thoughts about car dealerships. We're going to talk about some surveys. I recently read a bunch of tweets. Again, follow us on Twitter for all the coolest stuff from Automotive News, which is a big blog a whole journalism venture specifically tailored towards people who work at dealerships and own dealership groups, things like that. And they recently had a panel, and they live tweeted out the things that the people who were on this panel were saying specifically about dealerships. I thought all of them were really interesting because, well, we'll get to the why later, but they had some interesting things to say. I think we have some responses as people who really like cars and people who, have all bought a car in the last year-ish.
Say spent per capita an inordinate amount of time in car dealerships.
Very true.
And I think it's also interesting because the data that Andrew is bringing into this is from the heads of dealership groups. So he's bringing it in from the sellers. I found a great bit of data from a very recent poll from the opposite side of that. I've got some data from the buyers, so from the consumer side of it. So it's going to be interesting to see if what they think is going on is actually going on in the heads of the consumers.
Yeah, that's really cool. This is going to be good.
So, and then we all have, like we said, personal
Seeing
experience.
as it's not a triangle, I mainly just have opinions about those two things.
You're just over there producing. Don't worry
Yep.
about it. But first, as always, we're going to start with a couple of pace laps. I don't have anything. I'll just go right up front. I got nothing for pace laps this week. I'm relying completely on you two.
I got two things. One of them I had forgotten about. I meant to use last week, but I totally forgot about it. It's a comment from the head of BMW's M development. His name is Germanic German. No, it's Klaus Frohlich.
Okay, so
It's about as
same
Germanic
thing.
German as you can get.
He's the head of M development.
Okay.
And at the Paris Motor Show, where
Yes.
I think they debuted the new 2019 3 Series / BMW M3. This quote is so fantastic.
Is it very German?
No.
Okay.
Here it is. He's talking about the new 3 Series. It has to beat everyone in the segment in driving dynamics because all the Australian, UK, and American journalists say, quote, "Oh, the E46 CSL was the last real 3 Series." I do not want to hear that shit anymore.
He's my new favorite person.
His actual quote. So, you know what's so funny about that? I've never heard anybody say pretty much anything positive about the E46. Am I wrong in that?
I don't know where he's reading that, but
Everyone always talks about the E30, which is
Yeah.
Yes.
1,000 years old now.
Yes.
But, maybe we're not privileged enough.
I certainly have never driven an M3.
Nor
or
have
an
I.
E46.
But, maybe we have, the Luddite view of BMWs. Like, we know that we're not even in the club enough to know what BMW we should know about.
That's certainly the case.
Yes.
It's got to be. It's got
I
to
don't
be.
have nearly enough polo shirts for this.
Anyway, I just think it's so funny because so rarely do you hear a director swear first and then also directly address that apparently they know, BMW know that people consistently say whatever 2 or 3 generations ago was the best one.
I just like the fact that he's got a competitive edge to him.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool actually.
I mean,
think
you don't get to a level like he is done without being hyper competitive and being a complete Type A personality, all of those things. But they're also very good at being professional and kind of mundane in public when there's a microphone or a recorder in their face.
Not this
Yeah.
guy.
The fact that he was that candid and that openly competitive in public, I want to go work for that man.
either that or he is all of those things and he's literally been hearing this for so long.
He
He
got-
He can't handle it
just
anymore.
went
actually
insane.
at a breaking
It
point.
just went insane. But either way, that was an amazing quote.
Yeah, that's right. Shout out to Klaus.
What up, Klaus? I'll send you my resume.
You got anything, Tristan?
I have a specifically titled "Dope Car News."
Dope.
Dank car news?
Yeah, yeah.
So not neat. This is
No.
This is surpasses neat.
In a sarcastic fashion.
Oh,
I'm ready.
That's the title I've chosen for people whose cars are working way too hard.
Ooh, yep.
I was driving home from work and hit the back roads and was actually moderately concerned as I heard a sound I normally only associate with driving through downtown Milwaukee. What appeared to sound like gunshots.
Uh-oh.
And it was, in fact, the Mini Cooper behind me.
Super uh-oh.
that had been slammed.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, there we go.
And had a giant, those like twin tail that come out the middle, fat pipes on it, and it was still, the funny part is it was still badged, and it was not a Cooper S. It was not a John Cooper Works. It was none of those things.
Was it a Countryman?
It was just a regular, like maybe second gen Mini.
Great.
Also, it's old.
Yeah. And
Great.
And he made a very aggressive pass because, you know, I drive a WRX and that makes him mad. That I just bought my car with the same capability that he had to modify his to get. And made a very aggressive pass. And then was just rattling his way down 83 in front of me. Every time he let off the gas, it would backfire.
Yep.
And giant puffs of fire and smoke would come out of the back of it.
Of course.
Because it's clearly running to its highest standard. It was appalling. And not normally something you'd find from a Mini.
Was it stanced or just slammed?
Slammed. Just slammed.
I'm a little disappointed.
Sadly, not stanced, because that would have been the dopest car news.
That's exactly.
But no, it's like I said, it was odd because it's not something you associate with Mini drivers.
That's
Generally,
true.
it's usually
They're not.
you know,
They are kind of cult-like in their
Yep,
love for
and
their
they
vehicles,
will
but
modify
they don't.
them. They will,
A little.
but they don't do that.
No.
Yeah, it was appalling.
I wonder what
actually.
other Mini drivers would have to say about that guy.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I can only imagine they look down on him. Because, of course, who makes Mini?
BMW.
BMW. That's
I
right.
thought it was a good segue.
If you would like a small car with a $10 trillion repair bill,
Buy a Mini.
I have one last piece of news that is equally epic. Auto industry advisor, famed Renaissance man of the world. You can't think of anyone who hasn't. You can't think of anyone above Kanye West, of course, right?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Yeah,
well,
sure.
he made that little visit to Donald Trump's
Yay.
house.
Didn't he just change his name? Isn't it now just
Yee?
Yee?
No, he's
Yay.
it's something. It's a play on Gandhi now. Yandi.
So that's this week.
No, that's the name of his new. Whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kanye went to the did that meeting with Donald Trump. He has some really, really good advice for Ford, and they're not going to have thought of this. This is Kanye's specific advice for the Ford Motor Company.
Is it? Hey, do we agree with Kanye West? Spoiler alert.
Maybe.
Okay, let's see.
Here's the thing.
I haven't heard this statement, so you can't say that.
This might not be something Ford's ever thought of. Kanye West says Ford should build the quote flyest, freshest, most amazing car.
Well, he did say car, so we at least agree with him on that. Yeah.
Do you think Ford has ever thought of that?
I don't think so.
I honestly don't think so.
I just
Not even joking.
So when was this statement made?
During Kanye West's White House trip, which was
Yes.
last week, I think it was. Middle of the week.
Okay. So this Monday morning, in the boardroom, everybody at Ford got together, got up to the whiteboard, and wrote flyest, freshest. What was the third one?
Most amazing.
Most amazing
In large letters.
on the board.
And ran out of room immediately.
And then put car. And then turned to their engineers and said, go.
And said, we're not doing it because it says car.
I do not understand. Of course, the irony is in some way, I think that he's right because they obviously need cars. And while Ford stands there, and again, God, it's so hard not to talk about Ford because every single time we get together, they've done something else to further this agenda. For example, now their stock's in the $8 range. They keep reaffirming the fact they're not bringing back cars. They keep saying they're going to cancel cars in Europe. But this plan isn't
Are we
working.
supposed to stop you when you talk about Ford?
I don't know.
Didn't we make that agreement last week?
No.
There's so much news.
I don't know. No.
No, Doc, keep going.
Yeah, so we agree with Kanye on the fact they need to bring cars back. They're obviously not going to, and they're obviously going to fail. It's the reason why I get so headed up when I talk about this is because it's literally like watching a very slow motion car accident, or like when a kid is about to hurt themselves in something, but you're just too far away
help.
to prevent it, and you're just preparing for the fact that you're going to have to deal with what happens after.
For me, it's like it's a worn out cliche, but it's like watching somebody that has a bunch. They're in a hole. They have a bunch of pieces of wood and pieces of metal, and insisting that they're going to build shovels instead of a ladder.
Gotta dig themselves out.
And like it's just like, what are you doing? Yeah.
And yeah, we don't have to go into this, but now they've got this whole new thing. Built Ford Proud is going to be their new slogan. They got an ad with the most washed up person in the world, Bryan Cranston, and it's all doomed. It's all doomed, and we're gonna have to deal with it.
Well, we're not.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But as people who like cars,
Do you own Ford stock?
no,
Do you own a Ford vehicle?
no.
Then you don't have to deal with it.
But I have a vested interest in the success of their company in the sense that I don't want a company that made some of the very best cars ever in America to just fail. You know what I mean?
I get it from a sentimental standpoint, but I also, if they insist, I also have no reason to stop them either.
Yeah.
So-
And we can just sit back and say, "Look, well, we tried to tell you. We
Fair
refuse to help people who don't want to help themselves."
Speaking
So-
of people who don't help themselves, that's a good transition.
Is it?
Yeah, we can go to right into our main topic with that.
Before we do, hold your thought. Quick housekeeping. For those of you, here's another something new for our podcast. If you folks out there are looking for a phrase of the day or phrase of the week, start with finagle the bagel.
Don't start with that.
Start with it, evaluate it, immediately throw it away, and wait for next week.
Bring that into your place of work.
People are gonna love it.
Try to use that in the office tomorrow.
Around the water cooler.
Yeah.
In reference to the latest episode of The Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
People are gonna love it.
Yep.
Not me, but people.
Other
So,
people.
finagle the bagel. You're welcome.
My goodness.
Andrew.
That's so unhelpful. Well,
Now that we've lost our elegant transition.
yeah, exactly. To review. Last week, Automotive News was having a panel bringing in dealership group owners, salespeople, blah, 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 in to talk about the state of the industry. And they were kind of live tweeting the major points that the panel experts were making in their biggest panel of the week. And I don't necessarily know any of these people or the dealership groups they own, but you can assume that most of them own groups related to their last name. So the first tweet that they sent out was a very simple one from a guy named Ryan LaFontaine. Probably owns like LaFontaine
Fontaine.
Auto.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give their names just because it doesn't matter to anyone. But
You probably got it right. You probably just did.
yeah, I'm sure. But I haven't done any research, so. His first point was very simple. Dealerships need to get better or will be the Blockbuster or Toys R Us. Which I think is interesting. It's an interesting place to start because as all three of us have bought cars recently, and all three of us also have memories of Blockbuster and Toys R Us,
Indeed.
I didn't get the sense during any of my shopping that the dealership model was going away. However, when you look at places like CarMax
Yep.
or the sudden resurgence and reinterest in those stupid no-haggle dealerships, which never give you the best deal, by the way, there must be something to what people like Ryan are saying. There must be a reality behind the traditional dealership model going away. So what do you think about that? Just in a very first general sense, what do we think about that?
Yeah, I think they're, rather than go away, because there are certain legal protections in place
Right.
as far as where and how you can buy a car, unless there will only be used cars in your state, then there will be dealerships. I don't think they have the physical ability to go away, but I think the experience will change and has changed. And I don't know if we're kind of doing our overview now, so I'll wait for the details later. But
Sure.
I think it's going to and already has in a lot of ways changed from even 10 or 15 years ago what that car buying experience was like. But I don't think they're going to go away.
And I think the reason for that is just because the advent of social and digital in the past 10 plus years we as consumers have so much more data at our fingertips now. We can come in more prepared to a dealership than ever before. We can come in and look at a sticker price and know, for instance, that is $2,000 higher than the average in, my county or my region.
Sure.
And up until the past few years when we had these third-party companies and these data warehouses gathering all this information, the dealerships really had you could almost call it like an upper hand when it comes to, because we were essentially ignorant coming in.
Right.
Whereas now we're not. So yeah, they need, I don't get better. It's kind of like they need to adapt, I think would be a better way to put it.
And that's interesting because one question that I always think of when we talk about like dealerships, in the 70s or whatever versus dealerships now, there's always that thought about trust. You know what I mean?
Or lack thereof.
And how, so that's always my question. Did people know less back in the day, so it just seemed like all dealerships were trustworthy? Or is it one of those both and things where, yes, the advent of media has made shady dealerships
more apparent
to everyone,
Yeah.
and also made it harder for dealerships to lie about things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's true, and I think that we can start delving in a little bit based on, like, for example, my most recent car buying experience. A lot of the functions of a dealership are gone. So I think that...
What do you mean?
Show your work, Dudley.
So, for example, even relatively, uninformed or uninterested car buyers, they go in basically knowing what they want. There might be a few choices that they have to kind of pick from. But, for example, my last car buying experience was, I know I'm going to buy this. Mm-hmm. Who's going to give me the best price, and where am I going to test drive it?
Right.
And I think that...
I would tend to disagree with that. I don't think that most people go in knowing what they want. I think that car people go in knowing what they want.
And I think that's why I say it's not that they know exactly what they want, but for example, even your wife, it was like she had maybe 3 or 4 things she was looking at.
Yeah, I mean she's kind of again in the process of looking at cars, and yeah, it's basically a rough idea. Then you do the traditional thing. Go online, read the stupid consumer reports, blah, blah, blah.
That wasn't traditional until pretty recently, though.
I suppose
right,
that's true.
That's what I mean. Is
the newer approach.
That's what we're talking about, how
you
we're
pick a
more
few models,
informed.
yeah, and then choose between them.
Yep. And I think that's part of the dealerships are not, I think they're very rarely there to have you choose between any models of their brand. It's almost always, I'm here to test drive this one car and compare it to another car of another brand because it's in the same segment.
I wonder, because what's interesting about that is that there was another dealer at the panel that talked about dealer consolidation and how that might allow for more adaptive, he says, might allow for, quote, more adaptive approaches that can provide what customers are looking for, which is kind of a nebulous quote, but I've actually been having this thought quite a bit lately as well, because my wife knows the car that she wants, and it's actually down to 2.
Okay.
The issue is the local dealership for one of the brands, for the Jeep, is terrible.
Yes.
And we have, Boucher is the group that we have frequented, and we have a salesperson here that we actually like. While I understand that the Hyundai employee might not be able to tell us anything about the Jeeps, neither can the people at the local Jeep dealership. It's one of my biggest issues I'll get into a little bit more later. I would be more comfortable having the salesperson we know sell us a different brand even if they don't know anything about the brand. But right now, as far as I know, there aren't any dealership groups that can do that, even if it's within the same ownership.
That ties into some of the data that I found. I was on a website, it was called V12data.com, which I assume is an automotive data website. But the survey itself that they were reporting on came from CDK Global, just so we get the source out there and the reference right. Customer experience is by far the number one, even over price. 72% of the people surveyed said they would visit more dealerships if the buying process was improved. 54% of the people surveyed said customer experience was more important than even the lowest price.
I wonder what that entails. But go ahead.
And I think
Well,
that's
just being comfortable with your salesman, having someone able to tell you about the vehicle you're looking at.
And I think that's why, as a car person, my self-defense mode is to ignore that entirely. We kind of discussed this when we were bouncing the episode around. I said, hey, are we going to do this one? Mm-hmm. I mean, I love Don, my car salesman from the Subaru dealer. He's a good guy. But he was entirely superfluous to the process.
Sure.
That's a big word
because
you just used.
Word of the day. Because I think after having some experiences where I went to a dealership and wanted to try 3 or 4 different types of cars, which gives you a lot of time with your salesperson. They can give you the hard sell. They got you dragged in for like 3 hours looking at cars. Mm-hmm. I was like, that is an unpleasant experience looking at your survey. That experience in the dealership is unpleasant. And now my self-defense mechanism for the last 2 cars has been, I want that one, gimme, and walk out. Because I hate being in car dealerships.
I actually have kind of the opposite reaction where I become hyper aware of what the salesperson does and doesn't know and use that to directly inform my buying decision. So when my wife and I went to go look at the Jeep Renegade, we had a salesperson who didn't seem the most knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. It was a woman, but had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that she was a woman. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to use the pronoun she, and the people were going to get worried. It had nothing to do with
exactly. To be clear, it has nothing to do with the fact that she was a woman. She was just a shitty salesperson. So we asked her to pull up a Jeep Renegade. She said the nearest one I have is a Liberty, it's a limited version of the Renegade. She pulls it up. I hop in, and I noticed that the TAC and the Speedo are in a full digital display. And I said, oh, is that standard on all the models? Thinking in my head, this is a limited. Clearly, that's not going to be in every model. She goes, yeah, it is. Of course, we get in, a altitude or a latitude, whatever is one class down.
Latitude.
And it's a standard display.
What my sister has.
Yes, and it's not all digital. And I'm kind of like, okay, I know nothing about Jeeps. I couldn't even tell you the difference between the trims. When I get in a car and see a full digital dash, I know that that's only in the premium tier. I know that it is.
It doesn't matter what the brand is.
Exactly. Why did she not know that? She works there. She's employed there.
Made a mistake?
I just don't think that she knew. But how can you not know? I mean, that's kind of my point.
And therefore, you do all your own research and you don't care what the salesperson tells you.
Yes. But I'm also of the belief that they should know because
they definitely should.
Oh, I agree.
There's a very finite amount of detail. There's a very finite amount of knowledge that goes into even a multi-brand dealership. So this one is a Dodge, Jeep,
Fiat.
I don't think they do Fiat, but they do
Chrysler.
Yeah, so they do those 3. That's like 25 models, should we say?
Nick, you come from a sales background. Can you know things about more than 25 products?
You should be able to.
Good. Okay, got that out of the way.
And yes,
You should be able to.
okay, yes, there's trims, yes, there's packages, whatever.
Or, sorry to interrupt,
No.
just to get back on his question there. If you don't know,
Always say, I don't know, let me find out for you.
let me find out and get back to you. Don't just say something.
Right.
And don't just say what you think they want to hear.
Right.
I've had that happen plenty of times when I was in the sales field. They ask me a question, I'd be like, I'm going to be straight up with you, sir. I don't know that answer. Let me make a phone call. Let me shoot an email off. If you need to leave, give me your contact info. I will get back to you with that answer, but I do not know that. Mm-hmm. Customer experience.
And see, yeah, that's the whole thing that goes into it. But as opposed to you just kind of ignoring it, I actually get very aware of it and extremely agitated when the salesperson is, transparently knows less. I could just eyeball it and tell you that digital dash is not standard on all freaking Renegades. That should be painfully obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Like I said, I think that comes from a different underlying personality. I am mostly conflict averse, so
I don't take it out on the salesperson. I am just significantly less likely to buy from them.
which is taking it out on the salesperson.
No,
Do they get a commission from you?
Okay, fine. It is taken
is.
out of sales,
Yeah.
but not in an overly cruel way.
No.
I don't
like
call
you
them
don't-
stupid
you-
to their
you-
face.
Yeah, you just call them stupid.
Oh my God, you're
on a-
wrong, and then just slap them. Yeah.
You just call them stupid on a podcast that a bunch of people will hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is how I fight back.
Long con.
Yeah, from a distance, over the horizon warfare. So I think that's part of over the years what I feel has gotten worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if it's because the car industry has gotten, I don't know if it's more competitive or less competitive, or I don't know how we're standing in number of sales in this country in cars. So I don't know if the competition for individual buyers is hotter, or just the dealerships I go to are not luxury car dealerships like my parents went to.
Sure.
Well, I see.
know-
I don't think it's any better there, but keep going.
But I feel like there was kind of an almost like white glove service at various luxury brands where it's like, yeah, sure, I'll crawl in the trunk so your entire family can go on the test drive with you or whatever. And whether the actual underlying sales tactics were any better as far as price negotiation and stuff like that, it didn't feel like you got done at the dealership and needed a shower. That's my underlying problem with car dealerships.
Yeah.
Is that it feels like a literal hive of scum and villainy.
They can.
Like, even the good ones. Like, I love my Subaru dealer. They've done great things to get this poorly financialed person into cars I have no right owning financially. And it's great, and they do a good job for me, but the whole time you're there, you're like hearing these things around you that I think I've kind of insulated myself from by just going in acquisition mode and not shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I go buying cars, and I think that car shopping is gross.
I enjoy that process because it's very life affirming to me to disappoint a stranger.
See, different underlying personalities.
But no, to be honest, the shopping part.
That's the most Andrew thing I've heard in about a month and a half, probably.
No.
Oh, got him.
The shopping part is what I enjoy because, listen, I like cars. I like seeing what's new on the market. I like driving new cars, feeling new
Me
technology.
too.
The difference between, a solid rear axle and independent rear. I mean, I just like being in new cars. And more than that, to move on to kind of a new point, I actually enjoy helping people shop and buy cars. But I would never, ever, never, ever, 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 never work at a dealership. Which goes into...
Ever.
Yeah, ever.
Would you ever?
There was a guy on the panel who was very keyed into this. His first quote was just very, very upfront. We need to attract better talent to the industry, which I think is very...
It's 100% true.
Because if like you said, Nick, maybe if you can't if you can't memorize the details of 25 different products, maybe
Or
you shouldn't
even
be
know
working
to
there.
just say, let me find out.
Right, or even that. And then his second point was today's young employees want career growth, flexible hours, and stable income. And what we offer as dealers is in
none of
conflict with
those.
all of them.
Yeah,
Was his-
none
was
of
his
those
direct quote.
things.
And that's part of it. I mean, I like, in theory, the practice of selling cars to people because that's actually a product I care about. And I am somewhat interested. I get some personal gratification from putting people in the right car. But when you're at a dealership, that's not what you're there to do.
Nope.
You're there to get them in any car they will pay you for at any price.
Because it's about turns.
But it's not even that anymore. You are now there, especially if you work at a Ford dealership, you're not there to put people in the car they want. You're not even there to put people in a car they might like.
No,
you're there to
that's what I
take
mean.
that person for the most possible money. That's fucked up.
That's what I meant. I mean, I don't know if it was clear, but I was like, put them in any car you can.
Oh, I gotcha.
At any cost, not money wise, for your soul.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And it's...
Well, like I said, back to my example, even my beloved Subaru dealer had to lie to me to give me a car because. So here's my German side comes out when I buy cars. I hate fancy doodads on cars. Hate it. My biggest thing I went out of my way for this time was CarPlay for my car.
Right.
That's the most advanced I want. I don't want sunroofs. I don't want any of this driver assistance stuff.
Me neither.
I mean, leather seats maybe because they're easier to care for unless you scratch them. But like, I don't want all this crap on my car because everything breaks. So the more stuff you put on your car, the more stuff will inevitably someday break.
Well, more to the point, as a tech person, you know once you reach that 7-year technology, good luck fixing that shit. But, you know, that's an aside.
Yeah, so I don't buy anything other than base cars if I can avoid it, or I buy used. And even then, you know, the Jeep that I bought was, other than that appearance package,
Yes.
the Freedom Edition, which was just the wheel color and the running boards that someone else had already taken off before I bought it. That was a base Grand Cherokee. I love base cars. I think they get you in touch with your car. I think they're fun. They're more fun, I think, than a lot of the higher end cars. So I told my Subaru dealer, no World Rally Blue, and I want a 2019, and I want it base. I have 3 requirements. They fulfilled 2 of them in retrospect, because they didn't tell me that it had the floor mats tucked in the trunk,
Sure.
which they didn't charge me for. And while perusing my sticker, once I discovered the floor mats, it also had the short throw shifter option, which, although not necessarily more likely to break, it was an option that at the time I was unwilling to pay for, which they knew and they didn't charge me for it, but they couldn't find me or were unwilling to take the time to find me an actually base WRX with no options. They found me the closest thing they could and threw it at me without telling me what was on there because they wanted to sell me a car.
I can totally see the 2 sides where we're coming from. The first one is, why the hell are you complaining about free stuff?
I'm not.
That was my thought. Like, okay, so they
But-
gave you extra stuff at a base price. What are you mad at?
I asked for them not to do it.
Exactly. And that's really what it comes down to.
It is exactly the same
Customer
thing.
experience.
All right, it's customer experience. It is exactly the same thing that I fully understood when people got upset about Apple for giving them that U2 music. It appeared on my phone. Why is it here? I don't want it. I hate U2. But it was free. I still don't want it. I didn't ask you for it. Same thing.
That's actually a really apt comparison. Damn.
Because U2 sucks.
I didn't think about it that way. I just know that I was so mad about that because
they didn't ask you.
And it was the only-
even though it was free.
it was the only iTunes music on my phone at the time. When you plugged your phone in, it would automatically start playing the first song on iTunes. There's always that frickin' U2 album, which I didn't ask for. And yeah, I mean, I was super mad about that.
Again, in all actuality, the floor mats probably aren't going to make my life any better because I'm going to replace them with WeatherTechs anyway. And the short throw probably made my life better. But it was like they are so... the point is not how happy I am with the outcome. It's that they were so desperate to sell me a car that they just knocked the price of those options off and said, no, here's the base one. Then didn't even tell me about them. Like, if they had been like, hey, we couldn't find you a base one, but we found one with the short throw and the floor mats. We know you don't want to pay for it. Is it okay if we knock that off the price and you're good to go? I would have been like, yeah, sure, none of that stuff is going to break. It wasn't the eyesight system or, God forbid, a sunroof. And, so it wasn't anything
For
that
those of you who don't know,
would've-
Tristan's a vampire. Anything that involves more sun is something he is 100% averse to.
Listen, sunroofs are where cars die.
He just knows that that's where the water is.
Exactly. It leaks.
Uh-huh.
Always, eventually.
At some point. Now, you know what it is, really? It has nothing to do with the features being there,
No.
not being there.
No.
It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that they didn't tell him.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
No, I see where
that's-
he's at.
It's because car dealerships are so desperate to sell cars, they will just lie by omission.
Well, somewhat... Sorry, go ahead.
They have required turn times
Yes.
for cars. Cars can only, depending on the model and the price and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
How hard is it to sell? It can only be on the lot for a certain amount of days. And I know this from my dealership experience, which was way different from both of yours because I actually knew the person who was selling me my car. Like he's a family friend, so it was a way different experience. But he was telling me that if a car sits on the lot over a certain number of days, like each car has a mark, like it can't sit over 50 or it can't sit over 65 or it can't sit over 35. Every day that it sits on the lot past that point is like a fine.
Yeah.
Like they have to
pay
back,
the manufacturer.
back to the
Well,
manufacturer.
it comes out of their dealer holdback, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is funny, talking about just odd things. Just brought something up.
So yeah, they're desperate to sell cars because they don't want to pay the manufacturer back after they already paid them for the car itself.
Yep. Interesting, weird fact about hold times on cars. The F-150 Raptor has an average time on the lot less than 20 days. It arrives and is sold in less than 3 weeks.
They're great trucks.
That's crazy to me, though.
They're not only good trucks, they're also super, super desirable. And
Yes.
remember this, with dealerships now offering, as insane as it sounds, 84 to 96 month financing,
Yeah.
people are
Can afford them.
buying on that.
Right.
Which is, first of all, it's horrifying. I took 60 months and felt bad about it. Genuinely, I was like, shit, should I buy this car at 60 months?
That's 5 years.
I know. And that's sort of the average.
Yeah.
And again, the only reason I ended up doing it is 10-year warranty, blah, 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 all this
Yeah.
other stuff. But I felt weird about doing 60.
Yeah.
And
90.
I know. It's just, it's unthinkable. It's
And it
unthinkable.
all comes back to...
Your financing shouldn't outlive the warranty.
No, it can't.
Car buying rule number one.
It just can't.
Well, that's talking about back to, though. Dealers are willing to do this because they want to sell cars no matter the cost. Mm-hmm. Even if it's roping someone into, an 8-year, an 8-year financing term. Like,
Which is beyond.
yeah.
Don't do that, people. Don't do that at all.
They're so. I think the mindset, and maybe we can read some more of these points coming through, and maybe it seems like some of these guys or girls, whoever was on this panel, have an idea that that there may be some changes coming here. But I think the mindset of a dealership was, if they leave with a car, they're going to be happy.
Right.
So whatever we have to do on our end to make sure they leave with a car, it's not just the dealership part. That was their idea of what good customer experience was.
Right.
Make sure they leave with something. Because, throwing in one of my points, this is crazy. Actually, it's actually not that surprising, but the number is just so high it seems crazy. Of the people surveyed by the CDK Global on car buying, 99%
Whoa.
begin the experience expecting a hassle, expecting it to be difficult.
That I completely agree with. I always expect it to be a hassle.
Exactly. It's like when you think about what the actual idea is, it's not that hard to believe. But at what surveys do you get a 99%?
Also, fully expect 1% margin of error. So it was everybody. It was every single
basically
person.
The margin of errors are usually more than 1%, so technically 105%.
I know.
People could have. Some people expect 2 hassles, in fact.
That would be me.
So the dealers are like, oh, they're expecting a hassle. Let's just get them in a car. That's not the key to this, I don't think.
But you know what's so interesting about that? Another one of these panel experts said that his dealer group's transaction time, average transaction time, and I don't know what that all incorporates, whatever, but their time is down to 37 minutes.
Do they have online? Anything online?
Yeah, they have online.
There's the difference.
But
Yeah,
here's the thing.
I applied for my financing online.
Yep.
Right,
when I
but
got mine and
their
was
transaction
all
time's down
done.
to 37 minutes. But that time is still the number one complaint on their customer surveys. Transaction time is still their number one complaint. At 37 minutes?
And I think that's part of where I was going, the kind of unreasonable Wall-E future is, a Domino's pizza or Little Caesar's Pizza, where you can walk in and open the little door and your
Well, hell,
pizza
I think I
comes out.
waited longer than 37 minutes for the pizza we had
Right.
tonight.
They're advertising the new like pizza port where you can order it online.
Yeah.
And then you type in the code and the door opens and you take your pizza home.
Everybody wants things instantaneously now.
I think if you can't buy your car entirely online, go to the dealer, type in the code on a little box, and your keys and your paperwork pop out. That's going to be when people are satisfied with how long car transactions take.
And unfortunately, given the type of transaction that it is, I don't think, well, I mean, you might, but I don't think you should go fully online to buy a car.
I guess my question is,
Amazon is selling cars.
they are starting, and one of the first brands is Hyundai.
Yep.
But my question about that is, really? Do people really want that? Is there...
I've got stats to back it up. 90% prefer that their dealerships start the buying process online.
But does that just mean shopping?
80% want to configure their payments. 60% are willing to configure their payments and provide contact information. And over half, I think it was like 53, 54%, want to start the credit process online.
I
Literally, that's what I did. And that's
actually
like,
disagree with any
like
of
I
those.
walked in and signed my paperwork and walked out.
Right. I mean, we arrived just a few minutes after you got there, and I only had time to figure out that there was no trunk release. WRX.
Which,
And
weird
paw at
fact,
it.
by the way.
Paw at it hopelessly while all the salespeople walked around me. Even that was a hassle, you jerks.
Didn't want to like. They don't have one of those. Like, just didn't.
Yeah,
didn't
no
wanna-
one-
just stood there and watched you struggle.
But here's the thing about that. I don't know if I had asked anyone. This is such a sidebar. Tristan's model of WRX does not have a physical trunk release on the back.
You have to either go into the car and push the button or use the keys.
Correct. Which is not that weird because
It's not horrendously inconvenient
the
either.
truth of it is that latch is only looped in on the key code access package, so you have to have a different package to get the boot release, which is whatever. You know, it makes some sort of weird sense, but I don't know that if I had asked any of the salespeople, they would have known that, because that is a weird thing to notice, number one, and a weird thing to ask about, number two. I don't think they would have known. That's not an indictment. I just literally don't think they would have known.
Because it's just an off the wall
Yeah.
type of request.
I didn't even notice that it didn't have one until I was home.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing.
Well, yeah.
I didn't-
Did you check it
No.
on the lot? No. Like,
No.
does anybody just go and open a trunk on the lot? I think, yeah, you would. I think my dad would.
That's me.
I opened the trunk, but I was already in the car.
Yeah, I
and
know.
I pushed the button. I didn't even look for the release on the
Right.
back.
But, yeah, sorry. What the hell were we talking about?
Talking about transaction times.
Yes.
Transaction times and like online versus.
So I guess my real question is, do people have such a low opinion of test drives and just going to a dealership to see a car? Is it because of the hard sell that you always get every single time?
It's the
Yes.
pressure.
Yes, that
Absolutely, it's the pressure.
I mean, that was my experience. So literally, I was new to a manual transmission, as you guys read in the blog. I wanted to find one of the CVT ones to test drive, and my dealership luckily had one, but my salesperson wasn't available. And I was like, that's okay. I'm just test driving. I don't need. I've already decided I want to buy this if I like the car. If I don't like the car, I'm not going to buy it. And I don't need a salesperson, obviously, because it's a WRX, not even STI. They force one on you because they don't want you to race it like a moron.
Right.
So that's one of the cars you do have to have a salesperson with you. So, well, is Don here? No, he's not here. Well, just find anybody. And like, I was already in the process of buying a car
Yeah.
with this other salesperson, and they just put someone in the car to babysit me.
Yeah.
And like, I commented on the fact that the eyesight apparatus, because the CVTs are only on the higher trim levels, the eyesight apparatus was all buzzy. I didn't like where the CVT put the car, but don't worry, I'm not buying one of those. And like, immediately started getting the hard sell. Like, well, if you really like this one, we can fix that rattle for you. And have you tried putting the CVT in Sport Sharp? And like, I was like, bro, I'm not buying this car. I'm buying a manual transmission car. If I like the way this one drives and what the interior feels like, I'm buying a manual transmission car. Unless you're going to drop the transmission on this one and put a 6-speed in here, I'm not buying it. So stop hard selling me on this car. It wasn't even like he knew I was already buying a car. He was trying to upsell me into this car that I told him I was never going to buy the CVT car.
Then it would be his sale, It's
It would be his sale, and
Not Don's.
it would be an upsell. And that's the hard sell behavior that makes car buying the hassle. I couldn't even get in to enjoy a test drive without a hard sell on a car. I told them I was not going to buy that exact one.
Man, you were lining up so much with this, with my notes.
What you got?
It's just, well, I don't want to just dump it all on you, so I'm trying to line it
All
up
right.
with what you're saying
Well-
here. But if there's anything we missed towards the end, I can start running through some of it.
If you got something topical,
If you got something that matches with me, go ahead. I'm just
gonna,
here for anecdotes, apparently.
I'm just going to continue to. I am really, as a low key sociopath, it doesn't bother
It's
me.
not low-key,
It's not
surprise.
low-key at all.
It doesn't bother me to completely ignore every single word that comes out of someone's mouth.
And it's not like it bothers me. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm letting this guy down. It was I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to spend the mental processing time to even have it happening around me. I was entirely uninterested in what he was saying. I was not going to buy the car, and to get him to shut up, I had to say I had to spend time and say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Let me drive the car.
I get that, and that's exactly what I would have done.
Yeah.
And I do understand that people, I guess my attraction to knowing about cars and knowing about the car that I want to buy is significantly stronger than my annoyance of having to ignore strangers is. You know what I mean? Like when I'm
Which is so weird for you because strangers annoy you so much
I know, but
in everyday life.
what we got to remember is, like I said in the article about buying my Veloster, I probably went to 9 different dealerships to test drive cars
Yeah.
before I bought the R-Spec.
Right.
Every single one of those got my phone number. Every single one of those got my email address and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. They just never called after I told them off. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I guess I want to make sure that more than reading the consumer reports, more than reading online reviews, I want to know that the car that I'm going to buy feels right around my physical form, feels right under my feet and my hands. And maybe that's weird. Maybe that's unusual. Is that what we're seeing here?
I think it's a minority because that's what, like, those types of things are what car people go shopping for.
True.
Because we were talking, like, we had it on a couple of episodes, like the best car for someone who knows nothing about cars. A lot of the general population out there is we just need something to get us to the grocery store and back, or get to work and back, or get the kids to school.
yeah.
True, but I think even for non-car people, it might not be what are the handling dynamics like, what are the ergonomics like, etc., but it'll be some metric. It'll be like, how many dogs can I cram in the back?
Right.
Or there'll be something that you need to verify with the test drive.
I would think.
Yep. Despite all the online stuff, 88% of the people in the survey I was looking at want to actually physically test drive a car before they buy it.
Only 88.
Yeah, which is actually surprising to me.
That's really not in the 90s.
It's,
I mean, I had to
it's
go.
close.
Like I
It's
said, I had to
88.
go test drive a car I knew I wanted.
Still, that is quite honestly, given that we've already had a survey result from this exact survey of 99%, it's very surprising to me that people wouldn't want to, and that anyone wouldn't want to test drive a car or wouldn't need to test drive a car. You know what I mean?
Look, I got to drive it.
And I
You
guess
got to
there-
drive it.
I guess-
Andrew, you got to drive it. Like, everybody's, I mean, not everybody. Apparently, 12% of people don't have to.
I gotta drive it and everything like it. That's where I'm at. I just do.
Yeah, but you've already said you enjoy that process
Yes.
too.
I guess because I'm here for the anecdotes. For example, my sister in her Renegade, I don't think she test drove one. I think she knew she wanted something that she could get in yellow, Brenna, because she loves her yellow cars. And rightfully so, they're the easiest thing in the world to find in a parking lot. And she
Fair.
wanted something that was small, and she liked the looks of, which she can look at online, and had all-wheel drive. When those are your only stipulations,
Sorry, I'm just having a moment here.
The death wobbles?
Let me tell you. Let me tell you
it's a Jeep term, by the way, which is funny.
Meg's qualifications for a car. It must be green.
So it must be yellow.
It must be small.
Yes.
It must be cute.
Yes.
It must have all-wheel drive.
She's my sister.
It's exactly the same.
So she needs to get the Renegade.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Does the Renegade come in green?
It
does.
does. Here's the thing, though. Low
It's
key.
stereo.
Say, holy shit.
Low key. My wife also really likes fast cars. So
Hot hatch.
it's the Renegade or it's the Kona, which is faster from 0 to 60 than a Dodge Challenger. That is not a lie. 6.6 seconds, 0 to 60 in the all-wheel drive.
Wow.
So those two comparisons. It's funny that you should say that. So
So she didn't need really to test drive anything and kind of put that onto the car people. Said, my dad and I, go drive one, go look at them. Do you think they're good? Okay, find me one to buy.
my wife did actually want to test drive and does want to, go head-to-head with the two that she's deciding on. But it's funny is that list is almost virtually identical.
It is.
That's crazy.
And the Renegade pops up
In
for
both.
both.
In both.
Because it is... I actually quite like her Renegade, to
It's
be
adorable.
honest. But it is the absolute word is cute.
Yeah.
Even the Trailhawk version is adorable.
That's very cute. But
It's a beast,
But it's adorable.
but it's a cute
Yeah.
beast.
It's like a lion cub.
oh boy.
We should call it the Trail Lion then.
Man, I just so
What else you got? What's our time? Because this could run on for a long time.
We're at 56 minutes.
oh crap.
crap.
Oh, crap.
Well, there's two solid points here, and I think the one that we're gonna have to go with, just because it's
We'll have time for both, I bet.
we'll see. There's one here talking about all of the incentive systems, blah 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 blah. The guy saying these crazy complex incentive systems, they're just nuts. I really believe we need to be thinking about everything through the lens of the customer, which is a great way of saying I think he's sick of doing the paperwork for all these dealer incentives. And I will say that.
And also, about damn time you think through the lens of the customer.
But they're because these.
Like, how is that not your first thought?
Here's what kills me about
Car dealer.
Yeah, that's
It is
exactly
two
it.
words.
And it's not even just the dealerships, because we now have watched it play out in public, from the CEO all the way down to every single dealership. No one in the Ford line gives a shit about what the customer wants. And yeah, that's a super generalization. Obviously, it's not true, but that is the message they're sending. Is it really that different at any other car company? I don't think so.
You think other car companies just do a better job of hiding it?
I think other car companies have different tactics to prove otherwise. Maybe it's a clever slogan. Maybe it's you know.
And I think a lot of it too comes in what you find post sale. So I think
Oh, that's really good.
Finally, someone mentioned it. That was going to be my big closing point that no one mentioned. But,
a perfect example. A friend of mine, just shortly after I bought my Rex, he bought a GTI. And he bought a GTI and made the mistake, in my opinion, of purchasing it at night and a black car. And gets it home and finds paint scuffs and a whole bunch of other stuff, and was like, hey, can I bring it in and have you guys buff these out and get new clear coat on there? And I drove it a few miles home. I didn't scuff it majorly on the way home. And not only was there hey, once it's off the lot, cosmetic damage is not a warrantable thing. I come from a job, both my current one even, and especially my previous one, where it's yeah, I know you got the new whatever it is, it's out of the box and you scratched it. It's not something that I can take care of for you, but at least you acknowledge that and say, hey, I realize that big scratch sucks, and but there's not much we can do for you. Basically, just totally ignored him.
Yeah.
Didn't interface with him at all. Didn't answer phone calls, didn't answer emails at both a dealer and a VW of America, corporate level. Reached out for customer service and didn't get anything.
Wow.
And that's from VW, who I generally consider to be at least better in car dealers of, do they care about their, users?
Sure.
Their owners. Subaru, VW, there's a few that are kind of feel like they're going out of their way. But even that, after you sold the car, they're done. And that's all they care about, it seems like.
After sales service is so key to a lot. Side note, I know we're running short on time. one of my marketing professors in college, he did consulting work on the side for semi medium-sized ish and above corporations, companies. And he would take them like off-site, some type of retreat type of thing, and it was him and all like the C levels, the EO, the FO, the MOs, all those people, right? And he said this in the class one time when we were talking about this kind of stuff. He said, we sit down day one, within 2 minutes, we don't even make introductions around the room. Whoever the highest ranking person is at this company in the room, I point at him or her and say, call your own customer service line. Right now, pick up your phone and call your own 800 number. Let them go through the whole process. When they hang up, I ask them, were you satisfied with that? And they say, no, that was god-awful. He said, tip 1, fix your customer service line. Now, introductions. Like it's so important, but it's so basic, but they just, like you said, you signed the paperwork.
They don't care. They've got your money. They're done.
Yep.
And that's the feeling, the underlying I need a shower feeling of a car dealer.
It's so interesting
Rears its head
because I really expected this to go somewhat differently from the three of us, because all having bought cars, all having different views of the car buying experience, we're just repeating the same shit that everyone always says about car dealerships.
Yes.
In different terms, yes. With different anecdotes, yes. But we're still expressing the fact that they can't be trusted. It doesn't feel like we care about. It doesn't feel like they care about our needs. It doesn't seem like they can really give us what we want or answer the questions that we really have, and that we would rather not spend time there.
Yes.
And that's because we're part of this larger group of people who all essentially say the same thing.
Oh man.
Even
That's a surprise to me.
There's not really a debate about it.
And I think it's even more so because we're so invested in what happens once you own the car.
Yeah.
It's like the lead up is great, the research, like, oh, I'm really excited about buying this new car. I've done my research. I'm going to go test drive it. Sign my paperwork. It's going to be a great day. And like, you're a car person. You're pumped. You're going to go get your new car. And like, it can manage to drain even people like us. Listen, maybe different for you because you've got a family friend doing it for you. But like, you know, it's kind
Really?
of...
No.
The finance part was bitch.
Yeah.
It always is.
But the overall experience for me, and I might be an anomaly just because I knew the person. Like, I've known this kid since I call him a kid because he's younger than me, since he was 10. I stood up in his older brother's wedding. Like, I've known him and his entire family for a really long time. It was and he's the used car manager, so he couldn't actually work directly with me to sell the car.
Sure.
But he pointed me in the direction of this salesman. He's like, look, when our other friends came in to buy a car, when my dad came in to buy a car, this is the salesman that they worked with. So this is the guy. And it was for me, outside of the finance part of it, fantastic experience.
Yeah. And just
It
like,
really was. And I might be a huge, huge outlier in this whole thing. So that's why I don't provide anecdotes like Tristan does on this, because it's completely different.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, and then it's so weird and such a unsettling experience almost. You almost don't enjoy the ride home. Now, again, my anecdote is different because I really almost didn't enjoy the ride home because I was worried I was going to kill you. But that's different.
I totally know what you're saying. I really expected that this would go differently because I don't know why. Why did I think this was going to be different? Because all three of us have...
Does Andrew actually have hope?
No, it wasn't hope. I just expected that it would, because all three of us, we really like cars. We really like new cars, you know, and there's always that excitement and that feeling of accomplishment, of your life moving forward when you buy a new car, and that's relatively even still new for me. But at the end of the day, it's always the same shit, like exactly what Tristan said. When you go through the whole process, see, I actually drove my car home the next day, so it was kind of back. But if you do the whole thing in one day, you still feel like shit when you're driving
Like,
home.
God, I'm glad that's over.
Or like, why did I do this? Or like, you know, was that, in some ways, was that real? Is this really happening?
A lot of times even because I think of the distrust you have in dealers almost innately, did I make the right decision?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Did I get
Yeah.
taken?
Yep.
Yep. You get, again, I didn't have that experience. I felt good about it, but I'm probably an outlier. So we talked about all the, I guess they're not perceptions if everybody feels the same way. It's pretty much a reality.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It seems like at least some of these, maybe they're on the panel for a reason. They seem to be a little bit smarter than the average bear.
They might know what they're doing.
Then these car companies.
Andrew
or
might
these-
not have hope, but I do. After reading
but-
that.
So let's talk about, and this is how I wanted to wrap up. This is why when you asked me earlier, how do dealerships make it better, right? We've got, according to what this survey pulled out, I didn't want to say like I came up with these like I'm some sort of guru.
You should have.
I should have said it. We're not professionals, right?
That's right.
So anyway,
I came up with these.
Let's back up. Here are my 4 main areas of change. Okay? We talked about number one. Number one is the financing part and the financing paperwork. Your friend there who said his average turn time was 37 minutes.
Yeah.
Way below average.
I believe that.
Average time is, according to the survey I found, was 91 minutes.
Ooh.
60 of those 91 minutes are spent doing the financing paperwork. So 72% of those people wanted to complete the entire financial process online before they walked in.
Mm-hmm.
One, to save the time, 60 of those 91 minutes. Then they get it down to a 31-minute turn time, which
Right.
is closer to your boy.
Lower, yeah.
And also the pressure point.
Yep.
Less pressure. They're doing it in their own home. They don't have someone staring over their shoulder. They don't have someone trying to upsell them. Mm-hmm. So that's number one, financing paperwork.
Plus, you got your bank on the phone. You got the
Exactly.
No, the whole thing.
No, exactly. Number two, this is the one that we didn't mention, which is interesting to me. Deal structuring.
I did mention incentives a little bit,
Oh, incentive. Okay.
but we
56% of the people surveyed want to start the negotiations with their own terms, with their own offers. Mm-hmm. Instead of the dealer saying, okay, yeah, it says this in the sticker, but why don't we do this and this and this? They make the first move. They move the first chess piece. Customers want that the other way around.
I would totally agree.
They want to come in
Yeah,
and say,
they do.
okay, this is how much I think this is worth. This is how much the market says it's worth, because we have like True Car and Car Gurus and all those types of things.
By the way,
that
True
kind
Car is owned by car dealerships. It's not worth using.
well, whatever. Car Gurus or whatever the others that gives you, that range. Kelley Blue Book, whatever you use.
Every-
You come in armed with your data and you say, this is what I'm willing to pay you for this car.
Mm-hmm.
And let them react instead of making the first move.
Yep.
So that's the second point. The third we talked about, test drives. 88% want a test drive. They did say that instead of a salesperson in the car with them, now I don't know really the difference
They
here.
prefer a minder.
They wanted a product specialist was the term they used. So maybe just a product level expert instead of
shit!
maybe
Yep.
a service person.
No, that's so interesting.
Yep.
Because I think what it reflects is exactly what I was talking about before. A lot of these salespeople don't know a goddamn thing about the cars.
They're good at talking to people.
They're good at hard sells.
Right.
It's not
Which
even
is-
that a lot of them are good at talking to people, because most of them can't talk to you. Not for a hot minute.
They can't even be people long enough to stop hard selling you.
Exactly.
Yeah. For my test drive, the guy's comment would have been like, "Oh man, yeah, that rattle's annoying," and then he would have said, "Hey, we can fix that for you if you want to buy it." His first thing was like, "Well, if you want to buy it, I can fix it for you." It's like, well, just comment on the fact that that's an annoying rattle first, make you seem kind of human.
Okay, sales bot. But no,
Sales
I think
bot.
that's very interesting, because that's my number one pet peeve. If, like I said, if the salesperson, and really it is at the point now where if they don't know one thing, I'm so much less likely to even consider buying at the dealership. Not from that person, from the dealership in total. Because I feel like, oh, well, your training must be crap.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing they said about test drives is, and this one I put a question mark by because it's kind of hard unless you go to one of those giant auto malls like what Bergstrom has going up towards Oshkosh, Green Bay.
Yep.
They want to be able to test drive multiple brands in one place.
Yes.
So I get it.
Which
but
they did mention in the brand consolidation.
That's
Dealer.
my read on
Yeah.
it.
I get it, but at the same time, if you go to a Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, Fiat dealership, You drive a Dodge it's essentially the same car with a different badge. It's not like you're driving it's a different brand, but it's the same car.
True.
So unless you go to one of those auto malls where it's like Audi, BMW, Ford, Nissan, Honda, like that's the only time you're ever going to really get that true experience.
Yeah, but I guess what I...
Or you just go to Enterprise.
Just test
yeah.
rent them.
Just rent them.
But what I see that as expression is the fact that, like down in Waukesha, if I go to Boucher Chevy on the corner,
Which is where I got my vehicle.
Yeah,
Highly
drive
recommended.
a Chevy Spark,
Sure.
and say, oh, I'd like to drive a Hyundai Accent as well. You can see the goddamn Hyundai Accents from the front lot of the Chevy dealership. Can they get you one? No.
You have to walk one building over with the same name over the door to go test drive one.
And that is bizarre. So maybe it's not even that everything should be in one place. Maybe it's like, hey, welcome to Wild Honda or whatever. You just drove this Honda Civic. Oh, you want to drive a
Legacy.
Yeah, you want to drive a
Impreza.
Legacy. You know what?
Because they have Subarus too.
Yeah, we don't have that car here. We can get it tomorrow. We'll get a comparable Impreza here tomorrow or the next day. Whatever it is. Just get it from the other dealership. Drive it there if you have to, because most of the cars, they get driven. It's whatever. Just get it on the lot for the customer. Let them do the comparison. I think people would be happier even with that delay if they wouldn't have to find a different salesperson.
That's how it was for me, and maybe this was just because I was like friends and family discount or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I was looking online, and we knew. Well, the listeners told me what I was going to buy.
The poll.
So I was looking, and he said, "Look, I don't have that on my lot, but our Nissan lot or whatever. No, it wasn't the Nissan. Maybe it was in one of the Japanese marks, but it was like down in Janesville.
Yeah.
He's like, we've got it at our blah, blah, blah lot in Janesville. It's not a Chevy dealership there. He's like, I'll get it here for you. Give me an extra day, and it'll be on the Boucher Chevy lot in Waukesha for you.
Used versus new. That's the difference.
And even mine, new versus new, they're willing to do dealer searches and pull from other dealers. But the weird thing is when you're going cross-brand.
Yes.
I think it would be very difficult for me to have... Even within Summers, they also do GMC Buick.
Right.
If I had been, for whatever reason, incapacitated and ordered a Buick, I don't think Don would have even been able to do the paperwork and everything.
Nope,
transferred from half a block that way.
Yeah.
It's literally right there. And because it is different dealer structures with different payments and stuff going to dealers, you can't transfer that between marks.
It must have been the used thing.
It's even the same
for yours, for sure.
Well, and you were buying your Colorado at a Chevy dealer.
Also true.
So they can hunt for other vehicles of their manufacturer, even from other dealers.
Yes.
That aren't owned by them. Mine didn't. Well, mine was not shipped to Summers when it was shipped to Subaru City.
Yeah. Well, they make some.
Trade.
Make a trade or a swap or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. People who have bought more than one car understand that there are machinations.
Yes.
If you go into a dealership and say, I would like to buy this exact car in this exact color, I will pay you what it costs. They will move heaven and earth and the moon to find that goddamn car for you. But if you don't do that, if you just say, I'm looking for a car like this, or, if you give them a little waffle on the fact that you won't pay sticker, they're not willing to help you out as much.
No.
And that's what really kills any trust, I think, in the general buying process, because people know if you go into any dealership and say you'll pay sticker, they will do everything for you. If you don't say that, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Which brings me to point number 4 of my four main areas of
Totally Nix.
TM. And we did touch on it, which I thought it was going to be cool to drive it home, but we mentioned it, the service aspect. And this wasn't like picking up the phone customer service. This was like, as far as like warranty service, getting your oil changed, tires rotated, the inspections, blah, blah, blah. 83% of the people surveyed wanted access. They didn't want to have to take it back to the dealership where they bought it just to get that work.
Right.
So they want the dealerships to make start a network. Just get local shops that can do warranty work for a Subaru or for a Chevrolet, for a Hyundai.
That's incredibly interesting.
Have those agreements. 63% just doesn't even have to be close to home. Maybe they take it on a road trip and something happens. They want to be able to service it anywhere and get those same agreements.
So, you're going to laugh at me, so I'm ready for it.
Always.
But honestly, what I'm hearing, other than we do want to have price negotiations, which is not a part of what I'm suggesting, they want car dealerships to be Apple stores.
Ooh, man.
Because Apple stores, generally, and usually they're kind of stomped on if they do this, they try to
let you test a phone. I mean, let you have it in the store.
They try to refrain from the hard sell. They are not labeled as salespeople. They are there to simply provide information. The mantra is providing the best solution. So, like, I was in Apple store and people will actually tell you, like, hey, like I want this iMac Pro. It's like, well, do you do 3D graphics and all that stuff? It's like, no, I want to browse the internet. Well, you just need this one. And they will actually downsell you at an Apple store.
That's what our company does.
Yep, and downsell you at an Apple store. They provide...
I've downsold people all the time when I was in field sales for our company.
Yep, excellent, for the most part, excellent post-sale service.
True.
Including Apple authorized service providers.
Also true.
Networks of people authorized to keep you under warranty. It's not perfect. It doesn't match up exactly, but that Venn diagram overlaps a lot.
Yeah, it does. And why are these 4 main points important? 56% of these people surveyed would buy more cars, would go to the dealership more if the process was easier.
Okay. I think they're lying, but okay. I do.
Here's the big one that hits home. Now, this is from... they took all that survey data and they ran some numbers. Car dealership sales would increase 25% if these demands, if this criteria was hit.
I don't know that I believe that.
How many big companies can hit 20% growth? Like our company has done it a lot, and it's hard.
It's difficult.
It's weird. Apple has done it a lot, and so there's like 3 or 4 companies in the world that can hit a 20% growth rate on the
1 year.
Yeah.
Well,
most companies are happy. They're
5 or 6.
popping champagne bottles. Extra yacht for the CEO if they get 6%.
Well, think about it this way too. This
25% sales increase in the automotive industry.
Well, this would be fundamentally organic growth as well, because you're not opening new product lines. You're not expanding into new territories.
With depending on if any of this, like the service networks or the deal structure, like run the paperwork to see what kind of cost that would be. But you're not adding locations. You're not adding heads.
You're not adding product lines.
It's just pure growth.
And 25% projected growth. Man. For a car industry, which a lot of it is in the negatives.
Yeah. There's a lot of
crazy.
I mean, it has to all be at some point. It does have to be the buying process.
Yep. So in summary, excuse me, I don't.
We almost made it.
Almost made it. Dealers probably never going away.
No.
And not necessarily will they ever need to change, but will they probably? I hope so.
It depends on what happens to the first one who does.
Yes.
And here's actually something
Someone's
else.
got to be the guinea pig.
Here's something to remember about the importance of dealerships. And this is something that I'll bring back around again, because I'm trying to get a very special guest on the podcast to talk more about this. But with the rise of OEM manufacturers like Tesla has 0 authorized resellers. They have 0 repair shops. Nationwide, if you want to get your Tesla repaired, it can only go to one place. It's the antithesis of everything that's in that survey. It's the antithesis of everything these dealerships are saying. It's the antithesis of everything the three of us have expressed that we would want in a car buying process. And that is the company that other car companies are looking to for functionally a model.
And I think it's going to be, does it turn out that it is a pie or it's not?
Right, but yeah.
Are we going to see 25% growth when you do those things because the people who want that are going to start buying more cars, or because they're going to take away from the Tesla model?
Right.
Does growth here mean less growth somewhere else or negative growth somewhere else?
Right.
Right. Somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Growth somewhere else.
Growth somewhere else.
All right. No, it is very interesting. I think we covered that really well.
Pretty thoroughly.
What do you listeners think about this stuff? What do you want in a car buying process?
What do you hate about your local dealership?
What do you hate about your local dealership? Or give us your best dealer or worst dealership story.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we still have Josh Balicki hero cards to give away?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
How about the best worst dealership story as judged by us gets a Josh Balicki signed
Autographed,
hero card?
yep. Get them
I'm
while they're
down
hot.
for that.
How about that for a contest? A
Absolutely.
contest, as Tristan might say.
A contest. A contest about growth. Look.
All right. Get us out of here.
And with that, folks, it's time to wrap up. But before we go, let's give out some thank yous. Fellas,
Okay, Daffy Duck.
who are we thanking tonight, or what are we thanking tonight?
I want to thank Twitter. You can follow our podcast at Check Engine Pod on Twitter, because without it, I would have almost no topics to ever discuss on this podcast. This podcast would not exist without Twitter at Check Engine Pod. You like that plug?
Yep. Awesome.
I was recovering from that plug. I'd like to thank online tire buying opportunities, because
This sounds like you're trying to sell us a pyramid scheme.
there are so many different places that you can almost always find the tires you're looking for one way or another, which is not the case at your local Tyler tire shop.
So true.
Let me tell you what. So thank you, the internet and online tires.
There you go.
Long story there. Won't go into it.
Maybe on another episode.
Yeah.
I would like to thank Skittles. Because they're tasty.
Fair.
Taste the rainbow.
I'm tasting the rainbow.
Catch
and
the rainbow.
Loving the rainbow.
Yes.
Why did they bring that
Yeah,
commercial? Never
Skittles
mind.
box.
We don't have time for this. We don't have time to talk about the stupidity of Skittles advertisements.
The advertisements don't matter because they're great candies. Thank you to Skittles. And of course, thank you to you, the listeners.
I'm surprised you didn't take the opportunity to say Skittle.
I wanted to make sure I plugged them. But thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in and for all of your support. We cannot wait to speak to you one more time.
We're going to get hateful emails.
Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.